My 19 boyfriend, M24, wasted 2 hours of my day, so I wasted an hour of his and made him cry. By user confused fruit gummy. Tell her my 19 F24 hasn't respected my time in the past. So this time, after he wasted 2 hours of my day for the second day in a row, by showering, I wasted an hour of his day and made him cry in petty revenge. Background: my ex-boyfriend is very dedicated to public service, volunteering, and a hard worker. On top of his crazy schedule, he also has a very built physique and is very dedicated to the gym. I found his ability to work hard, take care of his body, all while helping others admirable and physically attractive. A guy that does volunteering and aims to work in public service should be a good guy, right? I often found myself feeling like he never respected my time. He would ask to come over on days where I had classes the next morning. He admitted into pressuring me into sexual activity. Every time I confronted him with my feelings, he would always say, "I'm sorry you feel that way." He said I was ignoring him if I didn't respond to his messages or calls quickly, even if my phone was away. In the past, I was too clingy because I would message him too much, and was too demanding by expecting him to take 3 seconds out of his day to message me good morning back. He forgot to get me a Valentine's gift as he had no time, so he gave me a cheap, expired chocolate bar from his car. Eventually, he apologized because he didn't know it meant that much to me and bought me 2 Sour Patch candies and a protein drink. All I asked for was a handwritten note from him. Story: yesterday, I slept over at his place. We showered separately. It took 20 minutes. He took well over an hour. I had to keep knocking on his door to get him to hurry up as we had plans. He took his sweet time as showering was his alone time, and we missed our date plans as he had to go to the gym. Today, I slept over again. I tried waking him up earlier so we wouldn't miss our rescheduled date. He took 2 hours in the shower and I couldn't go upstairs to knock on the door as his parents were walking around. We haven't met yet, so I had to spend almost 2 hours confined in his room. 1 hour in, I texted and called him informing him of the time. He had his phone in the shower and said he would hurry up. Half an hour later, he was still in the shower. Another 30 minutes, and he was finally getting dressed. We no longer had time for our date again, so he was going to drop me back as he was getting late for the gym. He seemed surprised that I was angry at him. He said I was exaggerating 2 hours, but I remembered the time and I even sent him time reminders over text. I was fuming in the car and I told him to skip the gym as wasting 2 hours of my time, the second day in a row, was unacceptable. He said that the shower was his me time and he really needed it. He also said he couldn't miss the gym as he had to get bigger. I asked him if the gym was more important than me, and he said we could simply reschedule our date for tomorrow. Eventually, we reached my apartment. He told me to go inside and we could call and talk about my angry feelings. I refused to leave. I told him that he wasted 2 hours of my day, so I would waste an hour of his and he would have to skip the gym. So I stayed in his car for an hour. He tried to leave, but I raised my voice at him. I told him he was selfish, had no respect for others' time, and that it was unacceptable. I had never raised my voice at him before or done anything vengeful, so he was startled. He disagreed and repeated he was a good person that respected others' time. He said he simply wasn't aware of the time, but I responded with the fact that he had his phone and you can check the time there. He said he lost track of time, but then I told him I even called and texted the time. He went quiet and started crying, pouting, and stomping his legs. He kept repeating, "I've never felt this way. I feel so claustrophobic. I want to go to the gym. Please let me go." I refused. I said if he's feeling claustrophobic, he can take a walk around the area, but I wouldn't leave the car for another hour. I also told him he wouldn't be late for work, so he wouldn't die skipping the gym for one day. He cried and said he already missed half of his gym time yesterday, and I told him it was his own fault due to his poor use of shower time. He continued sitting there pouting and crossing his arms, sniffling and stomping his feet in the footwell. 40 minutes in, he said, "So you really want it to end this way?" I said I was fed up with his behavior, so I was fine either way. He continued crossing his arms and pouting while refusing to apologize. Eventually, I got out of the car and went upstairs while he drove off. I haven't messaged him all day, and he hasn't messaged me either. This guy was my first real boyfriend, my first kiss, my first everything. We've been dating for over 4 months. I don't know if it's right to throw everything away like this, but I also don't really care. I feel so happy with my small victory. Edit. Hey, he's not on steroids. Also hear that the hot water doesn't run out. Yes, I dumped him. Update. He saw the post. Spammed me with calls, excuses, apologies for hours. Eventually I picked up. He said, "Well, you know, some about petty revenge is bound to attract a certain audience." I also did another petty revenge against him. I downloaded a dating app a few hours after we broke up to shove it in his face. Swiped as much as I could and had 200 likes on my profile after 20 hours. Only matched with 2 guys though. So I did the most bare bones icebreakers. Nothing else. Obviously, I'm not going to hop into a new relationship anytime soon. Don't even remember their names. But my ex is pissed and says I cheated on him, lol. He said he felt sick and threw up. Now he's also trying to bribe me back into the relationship with a brand new Nintendo Switch old. Says he's a bad person, hurt me a lot, won't do it again, yada yada. Is also repeating the claim that I am a cheater even though we broke up yesterday, lol. Also, he vehemently denies ever cheating on me. Try and make your stepson ex's engagement party all about you. I'll bribe the staff to turn the party into a series of unfortunate events for you specifically. By user Nimpobor Barbie. My big brother recently got engaged to a lovely woman who makes him so happy. I'm thrilled for him, especially because he had a string of terrible girlfriends and messy breakups before meeting this woman, and he deserves someone good for him. So one of those terrible girlfriends went on to marry our dad and become our stepmom. She is, to put it as nicely and tactfully as possible, a bitch. When she found out my brother was engaged, she first complained that she wasn't told at the same time he told his parents and siblings, which, girl, he's your ex, and then proceed to try and make the whole thing about her. She talked openly about how this new girl isn't as pretty or sociable as a certain past girlfriend of his. She called his new fiancé to ask her questions to make sure she was right for him. She started referring to herself as a stepmom-in-law to be. She wanted to be involved in the planning for the engagement party, in which she wanted to make a speech. It all made my brother and his fiancée very uncomfortable. I was very involved in planning the engagement party. My stepmom was so adamant that she had to be involved, and my dad asked my brother to let her, so to keep the peace we let her. But I gave my stepmom random irrelevant things to deal with, so she couldn't have any actual say in the event. I had this woman choosing between 8 near identical shades of taupe for the ribbons to go around vases. I made it clear to her that her being invited to the event in the first place was a courtesy, and that if she had any tact, she would be ill that day. She, of course, showed up, wearing a white floor-length gown. Unclear if it came with a headdress. So I asked some friends of mine to run interference to prevent her from talking to the couple. I also talked to the staff at the event and bribed them to make her day a little bit difficult. The photographer didn't manage to capture a single photo that included her all day and asked to take the family photos while she happened to be in the bathroom. The bartenders gave her non-alcohol versions of every drink she ordered and spilled drinks on her twice. The waiters completely avoided going near her with canapes or drinks. And when she tried to make a speech, the microphone suddenly had unexplained feedback and stopped working. Then the music started back up. Afterwards, she complained about how bad the event was. Everyone else seemed to have a good time though, especially the couple. The landlady kept trying to show my flat without warning. By a user bad decision Barbie 4. I live in one half of a duplex. The other half is occupied by the owner, my landlady. My landlady is awful. I won't go into details, so you'll just have to take my word for it. Since we live in close proximity, I do everything within my power to keep the peace and prevent either of our daily lives from being too miserable. That patience finally wore out. My landlady decided to sell the entire duplex. Fine by me. I'm protected by my lease, and I figure my odds are decent of getting a less shitty landlord out of the deal. Obviously, she needs to show the property to prospective buyers. My lease states she needs to give 24 hours notice before entering my half. I told her I'm even fine with less than that as long as she lets me know the night before. I also set her up with a personal code for my alarm so she can get in if I'm not home since I travel frequently. However, even this has been too difficult for her. Had a knock at the door last week. It's the landlady with a nice young couple. She asks if they can come take a quick look. I say no. Sorry, I haven't had time to prepare for a showing since she gave me no notice. She pouts and says, can they just take a quick peek from the doorway? I stay firm. Tell them they can come back tomorrow if they like, and close the door. A few days later, I'm heading out the door and bump into my landlady out on the street with a strange man. She says sorry for not calling yesterday, but asks if they can go upstairs for a viewing. I say no, I have laundry up that I haven't put away, and I'm not comfortable with a strange man looking at my underwear. She pouts. I'm in a rush and jump into my car. I arrive at work to a notification on my phone. It's my Ring alarm system letting me know my landlady's code was used to deactivate and reactivate the alarm within the last few minutes. She's older and probably has no idea I can see who uses the alarm code. I am seething. That night, I delete my landlady's alarm code from the system. I do not inform her of this. I figure if she needs to show the property while I'm out of town, I'll just deactivate the alarm remotely from my phone. The next week, I'm traveling for work. I spend the day in meetings. I check my phone to find a million notifications. Ring has let me know the alarm was tripped. My landlady has called a dozen times, left voicemails, sent angry messages. Yes, she tried to go into my apartment again without giving me a heads up. She was unable to deactivate the alarm. Let me tell you, that alarm is loud. I assume half the neighborhood could hear it. I pay for ring monitoring, so the police were also automatically called. Since she owns the property, it seems they didn't give her too much grief. But as the neighborhood Karen, boy is she pissed at being the center of drama. But hey, I bet she won't try to go into my apartment unannounced again. Dad, the crying waitress, and the fart from hell. By user Jinx Mama, my dad was an asshole. A lovable asshole, a compassionate, intelligent, caring asshole, but piss him off and he became the pettiest asshole you would ever meet. I have so many stories about his pettiness, but this one is one of my favorites. And before anyone asks, I love my dad fiercely and miss him every day. He passed way too soon. One important thing to know about my dad is that if having the most noxious fart were an Olympic sport, he would have had multiple gold medals. Long car rides with him could be dangerous. And you knew that if Dad was in the toilet before you got there, you waited until anything he left dissipated, especially if he just had a nice rich meal. Dad and I both loved diners. And when we traveled, we would always ask where the good local diners were. On one of our college trips, we arrived at our hotel a little early and our room wasn't ready. The hotel clerk was very apologetic. Some of their housekeeping staff had called in sick and they were running behind. Since we hadn't had lunch yet, it was around 2:30-ish. We asked the clerk for their diner recs, and they suggested a place not far from the hotel. Off we go to lunch. Y'all? It's been over 30 years, but I still remember how good that food was. And our waitress, Sandy. Why do I remember her name? Because the couple at the table near us kept yelling it over and over and over again. There were maybe 10 people in the restaurant total, and Sandy was taking care of most of them. She was on the younger side, but knew her stuff. I always like to ask what the staff likes when I'm making my decisions. And she told me what she liked, what they were known for, and what the day grill cook excelled at. As Dad and I were thoroughly enjoying our food, we watched this couple treat Sandy like she was stupid. They sent their food back multiple times and said nasty things about Sandy so loud that we had no trouble overhearing them. Every time Sandy came to drop something off or check on us, she just looked more and more upset. Since we weren't in a hurry, and the restaurant wasn't busy, we lingered over our meal, ordered dessert, and were still there when the mean couple paid their check. You paid at the cash register, and told Sandy, quite loudly, that since her service was so bad, all they were leaving her was $1 tip, and they thought that was being generous. They left, and when Sandy came to give us our check, she looked like she had been crying. Dad went to pay the check and gave her a very generous tip. When we got in the car, he was pissed and I got to hear a lecture about how if he ever found out I treated a server like those people had, he would whoop my ass no matter how old I was. We get back to the hotel and had just checked in when another couple walked into the lobby. They headed towards the elevator that we were heading towards, and Dad and I both realized that it was the nasty couple from the restaurant who'd been so mean to Sandy. We got on the elevator with them. They were staying on a floor above ours. Just as the door opened on our floor and I was walking out, my dad paused, let out a large, noxious fart, and said, "That's for Sandy," and then walked off, smiling as the elevator door closed, hotboxing the nasty couple in with his equally nasty fart. I laughed so hard I cried. I do feel bad for anyone else who had to ride that elevator after that. Told her. Couple was rude to waitress and made her cry, so my dad farted in their elevator and left them to stew in the stink. First edit. Thank you guys for all the love for my dad. He was truly one of a kind. Unfortunately, we didn't make it back to the diner to tell Sandy about Dad's avenging fart. Glad I could bring a little levity into your day. I wasn't allowed a Son air freshener, but expensive face creams were a necessity. By user Horace or Doris. Originally posted in Air Cook, but thought it was good fodder for this sub too. I had an ex who bought a house and asked me to move in with her. She then decided that the job we both did was too much and quit without consulting me, meaning that I had to pay her mortgage. She then got a job at a supermarket, filling shelves on minimum wage, at around 1/5 of her original earnings. Money was tight, but we survived. Walking around town a few months later, I decided to buy a Homer Simpson air freshener for Son, only to be told that we couldn't afford something so frivolous. We should only buy necessities. Fair enough, I put it back, and that was that. When we got home, we emptied the shopping out, and there were 2 small jars of face cream that cost over $50 each. I picked one up and asked necessity, and was told, "Yes, do you want me to look like a fucking hag?" I started planning my escape there and then. I spoke to a solicitor and he basically told me that the bad news was that nothing was in my name, but the good news was that nothing was in my name. I stopped paying all the bills, including the mortgage, and a few weeks later, I found out she was also cheating on me. I begged her to let me stay for a few more weeks until I found somewhere else, ended up being 6 weeks, and promised to keep paying the bills until I left. When I moved all my stuff out, I presented her with a pile of unpaid bills, including 3 missed mortgage payments, and told her that her new squeeze Darren, the security guard, can pay them. If she'd just been honest and not used me as a meal ticket, I would have been happy to pack up and move out. But fuck you, Joe. You deserved it.